KrishnaKumar, and we have a power-packed lineup of some of the best stories from the world of business, economy and finance lined up for you over the course of the next 45 minutes or so. So buckle up. We're going to be throwing some truth bombs your way that could impact you, the consumer. And we begin with something that impacts many people in India who are looking to take their money and invest it abroad through the Liberalised Remittances Scheme, or LRS. The problem with the LRS is that from the 1st of July, according to the new rule, the charges of LRS is being increased from 5% to 20%, as in the taxation on LRS. Every single time you take your money and invest in any kind of financial asset abroad, you will be taxed. And that tax was 5% before, but starting the 1st of July, it will go up to 20%. But even as that goes up to 20%, banks don't know what is the TCS on the LRS. Now let me explain. TCS here refers to tax collected at source when it comes to that investment made under the LRS scheme. So there is confusion even as we usher in a new era of taxation on the LRS. I have Karthik Malhotra, who understands the subject like the back of his hand, joining me in the studio along with my other colleague Amit as well. Amit and Karthik, very good morning to both of you. Thank you so much for joining us. This is something, not many Indians at the end of the day take money and invest it abroad through the LRS scheme. But the fact of the matter is the LRS has been existent since time for a very long time now. And now more and more Indians with, pay grades going up, with more and more millionaires and more, affluent Indians coming up, the more and more Indians are making use of the LRS scheme to invest in financial assets abroad. The only problem is that before the focus, the spotlight was on the LRS scheme, it was 5% taxation. Now that there is so much focus, it's 20% taxation, but banks don't know where that tax is, or where it goes, or has it been collected or not collected?
Not really, Krishna. Actually, what you said is part of the problem, right? And that problem impacts very few people. But there are multiple layers to this LRS issue and tax collected at source issue. So let's start peeling them one by one.
Yes.
Okay. Now, LRS has been in existence forever, now 20 years or so. And the limit for LRS, which is the Liberalised Remittance Scheme, for Indians taking money abroad by way of either investing or even spending, the threshold on that is 7 lakh rupees. Up to 7 lakh rupees, RBI tells you, no problem, it's your money. You take it, you do whatever you want with it, domestically, internationally, wherever. But now, about 3 months ago, this new sort of financial bill amendment came in where they said, hey, we are going to tax every spend that you make outside of Indian borders. Now, this means every time you swipe a credit card at a McDonald's in the US or in Europe to order even, let's say, $10 worth of a burger and fries,
It'll become 12.
It becomes 12. It would have become 12 until about a month ago. The clarification came from the RBI, in fact, from the finance ministry, that, hey, you know what, every transaction is not going to be taxed. We will start taxing it after you breach the 7 lakh rupee limit. But there are certain exemptions in that. Number one, if you're spending money up to 7 lakh rupees, let's say, even on health care or on education abroad, we are not going to tax you anything. No tax, right? But if you're making credit card spends on any other leisure activity up to 7 lakh rupees, there's a 5% LRS. Beyond 7 lakh rupees, the tax collected at source is 20%. Now, this is where banks come in and they say, hey, how the hell do we figure out whether you have already exceeded 7 lakh rupees of your spends or not? And now, why are banks unable to track that? And that is coming out now. And this is basically a problem with instant knee-jerk decisions taken by the government to do something. What? I don't know. But to do something, to mess around with the system. Now, banks, as their operating entities, have core banking services and different verticals manage the credit card business. There is bound to be discrepancy or lack of sharing of real-time information between the two entities. Now, what happens is, you may, for example, if you are planning a trip to Europe, which you were planning, I think you've deferred it, but if you're going to Europe and you decide, let me convert 1,000 euros worth of money, right? For which you go to your bank and you pay INR and you take 1,000 euros, right? Trading at what about 91 rupees or so. That becomes about 90,000 rupees. Let's say about ₹1,00,000 worth of euros you exchange from the bank. Now, since that is an exchange through Forex, it is straight away slapped 20% with or without the 7 lakh rupee being breached, right? Now you have a balance of 6 lakh rupees within the LRS scheme. It's really convoluted, right? So now
but I'm following you, Karthik. We're going to, ladies and gentlemen, Karthik is absolutely, I'm going to be learning about this along with you, with Karthik explaining us. So I took 1 lakh worth of rupees and bought 1,000 rupees worth of euros.
Yeah.
And of the 7 lakh exemption limit for LRS, the first 1 lakh is taken up by this Forex transaction?
That's right. Now this, ideally the 20% rule kicks in after 7 lakh rupees. But in the case of Forex cards or exchanging physical cash, they are saying no 7 lakh rupee limit. 20% straight up tax. But in the case of credit cards, after you have spent more than 7 lakh rupees, the 20% rule comes in. Now, coming back to your example, you've taken a lakh worth of Forex, you've been taxed, let's say you had to pay 1 lakh rupees for it, the bank has straight away charged you 1,20,000 rupees, 20% slapped on your 1 lakh rupees, and you get your euros. Now, you want to travel abroad, you've got credit cards, assume you've got 2 credit cards. Okay, now, any transaction on both the cards cumulatively up to 5,80,000 rupees minus the 120 that you've paid already, or simplify it, up to 6 lakh rupees should be taxed at 5%.
Yes.
Now banks don't know at what point you breach that 6 lakh rupee threshold, because the credit card division still believes that your limit is 7 lakh rupees. The credit card division doesn't know you've already exchanged Forex worth 1 lakh rupees. Now, assume you have 2 credit cards, HDFC, ICICI. Between the banks, they don't know how much you have spent on the other guy's card.
Fascinating.
Add to this, let's say you have a Forex card.
Oh, that's card number 3 now.
Card number 3, right? That's a prepaid, preloaded card.
5% on that.
20% on that.
Oh, sorry, 20%.
20% on that. No 7 lakh rupee.
5% on credit cards, 20% on Forex cards trade, irrespective of exemption limit.
Absolutely.
Or not. Yeah.
Right. Now let me add one more. Let's peel one more layer. Yeah, this is fun. What if you are investing through a fund of funds option at, let's say, Nasdaq's FANG Plus mutual fund?
Correct.
You're doing it through Grow.
1 lakh.
Or any fintech for that matter.
1 lakh rupees.
1 lakh rupees per annum is what you spend. Credit cards don't know that you have already remitted that additional 1 lakh rupee.
Correct.
Now, let's assume you also have somebody in your family who you remit money to anyway from some bank account. Right. There is a brother, a sister, a cousin, a friend, somebody living abroad who you remit money to anyway as part of your obligation, your responsibility, your love. Now, you spend another 1 lakh rupees abroad. Banks don't know, credit cards don't know, you've already taken Forex, you have a Forex card, you have an investment, you have another credit card which doesn't reflect in their accounts, and you're remitting money in any case to somebody abroad.
So how much to be taxed?
So how do they tax your transaction of $10 at McDonald's? They don't know whether you reach the 7 lakh rupee figure or not.
I have a question to ask, just to put this into perspective. Here is the deal. So when you do Forex, you use up that limit of 7 lakh rupees, how much ever you do Forex, even as you're paying 20% tax.
For Forex, physical currency exchange, or loading a Forex card, or even booking a travel package through an Indian company. Let's say Make My Trip, Ease My Trip, Yatra.
A Europe travel package through MakeMyTrip.com.
Anything, any international package booked through an Indian domestic player, aggregator, is also taxed flat at 20%.
Correct.
Right. But credit cards will start taxing 20% at source when overall all your remittances abroad breach 7 lakh rupees. But unfortunately, the poor credit card manager, whether it's an algorithm or a person, has no way to real time reconcile all the payments, all the spends you have made outside of India in any case.
Right.
So that is the problem that banks are toying with. They are saying you've put a deadline of 1st July and you're telling me that anybody who swipes my credit card internationally will be taxed at 5% until he or she breaches the 7 lakh rupee limit, but real time, there is no way for me as a credit card vertical to know when your holistic cumulative LRS has breached 7 lakh rupees. So how do I tax my credit card holder? And that's the problem they are facing.
So is it an algorithm problem? Because most banks have separate verticals for credit cards and non-this thing.
Yeah,
So is
so
it just an algorithm problem?
No, the problems are multifold. You actually need reconciliation at an individual level across multiple agencies.
And that too at real time.
Real time.
And real time.
It could be investments, it could be a child's education, it could be a healthcare issue. It could be forex exchange, let's say through a Thomas Cook, which is not technically in the BFSI banking space, but you've written a check to Thomas Cook and you've got your physical currency in exchange of that. It'll be a long time before this data gets understood by the algorithm or the person at the credit card division of a bank that you have spent 7 lakh rupees, and henceforth every $1 transaction, £1, €1 transaction will attract a 20%, not a 5% TCS.
Fair enough. It's clear that the things are happening in, so to speak, silos.
Absolutely.
Simultaneously,
Absolutely.
parallelly.
So
and there is no way of
themselves-
reconciling between these verticals to even arrive at what should be the
Yeah.
taxation on your outward
At
remittance.
what point do they stop charging you 5% and start charging you 20%?
Correct.
Now, banks themselves, interbanks, they've got a system called CBS. I think it's a central banking system or something. So, your RTGS, NEFT, all those get
Bank reconciliation.
reconciled. That get reconciled almost real time. NEFT is real time, RTGS, etc. every 24 hours or something. But the point is, credit card verticals in any case operate as separate entities within banks, and individuals may have more than one credit card. So, interbank credit card synergies are not happening real time. So you may end up spending 5 lakh rupees on one credit card and 5 lakh rupees on another credit
And
card.
because they
10
didn't
lakh
reconcile,
rupees,
you're paying
they
5%.
charge you 5%, so you are happy. But eventually, when the RBI tells the banks to reconcile their books at the end of the year, there's a discrepancy at the bank's end. And when you file your taxes at the end of the year, if your remittances are in excess of 7 lakh rupees, you end up paying more tax when you come back.
Right. At this stage, I want to stop this and ask you, first of all, just to take this back a little bit. We've gone up from 5% to 20%.
And
that's like
incidentally-
punishing somebody who wants Indians. Oh, hey, if you're Indian and you have aspirations of wanting to travel abroad, wanting to invest abroad or do any of those things, then you will be punished.
So the logic that the finance ministry had come out with was that we want to identify who are the folks out there who are evading our tax system and remitting money outside of the shores of India. Now, these could be card transactions, these could be cash transactions, these could be property investments. These could be high luxury purchases, which also come under the LRS scheme, right? So these could be high luxury purchases which need to be taxed.
Right.
Now, the understanding in the finance ministry was that perhaps people are taking their cards and taking their money on which they have not paid taxes in India and spending that abroad. My point is, in today's day and age, if you have a credit card, that credit card on your name is linked to your PAN, your Aadhaar, and you have done your KYC in any case. So how does it really help you understand that somebody is evading taxes if he makes the credit card spends internationally and not within India? You have all the information of anybody who's making any sort of transactions in any case. So why make it difficult for those traveling abroad? Because imagine your delta is straight up 20%.
Yep.
It's 5% up to 7 lakh rupees, but a family of 3, a family of 4 traveling to Europe, traveling to US will, including tickets, hotel stays, willy-nilly end up spending 7 lakh rupees and more. Now, at 7 lakh rupees, at 20% to that, it becomes 8,40,000 rupees as a dent to your immediate expenses.
Yes.
Now, if you have not breached that 7 lakh and there is some error, you can come back, you can reconcile, you can do all of that. But the point is, my 7 lakh rupees straight away becomes 8 lakh 40,000 rupees for tax collected at source. I can come back, I can reconcile, I can say all this money is from my own tax that I've already paid on my salary and blah, 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 and I can reconcile it. But until then, this 20%, this 1,40,000 rupees on a 7 lakh rupees spend is sitting happily with the government.
Yeah, listening to all this, Karthik, how can I think of is that when you do something like this, LRS, you're talking about the HNI individuals from India who are able to invest in, stocks and property abroad, and you want to sort of, catch them, tax the rich, if I may, so to speak. That's where the philosophy it comes from.
But the 7 lakhs is hardly a threshold for.
I was just about to get there. When you want to do something like the LRS, think about it. LRS, either which way, was taken advantages of people who have enough money to invest abroad, apart from the investments in India. Most Indians don't have enough to invest within India in the first place.
Right. So that is one. Now, the LRS, the Liberalised Remittance Scheme that the RBI had drafted, actually has a limit of Indians remitting up to $250,000 US every year. So my point is, even on the 7 lakh rupees, when you pay 20% tax at 8,40,000 rupees, that 1,40,000 rupees will come back to you. But it will come back to you when you file your taxes for that financial year, and the refund comes to you in the next, in the assessment year or in the next financial year. So up to 2,50,000 rupees, up to 2,50,000 US can be legally remitted as per the norms of the RBI by any Indian abroad. So the point is, you may want to, let's say you have a healthcare situation to take care of. 7 lakh rupees ain't going to cut it.
Yeah.
If you have a
7
child
lakh rupees
studying,
won't cut it in India, sir.
Yeah. if you have a child studying abroad, education loan, staying abroad, spending for meals, travel, transportation, accessories, all sundry expenses, 7 lakh rupees ain't going to cut it.
7 lakh rupees will take care of at best one semester.
Absolutely. So the point is, you can legally remit up to $250,000 without paying any taxes, without seeking any RBI approval. Beyond that, you need to seek RBI approval. Fair enough. Do it. But the point is, in this guise to identify evaders of tax, high net worth individuals or regular folks like you and me
going abroad,
you're assuming that, hey, if this guy is going abroad, he's got money unaccounted for, and let me tax him and put the onus back on him to claim this money back. And that, to my mind, is completely unfair.
Yeah, and it just kills the aspirations of so many Indians out there, who are working hard or looking for better lives, being able to see the world. At the end of the day, great education. That's what it tells you. You're supposed to go out there and see the world.
And the immediate impact of that 20% is huge, because you're in any case cutting corners when you're traveling abroad, or when you're sending your child abroad, or when you're tending to somebody who has a healthcare problem. That immediate impact of 20% is fairly sizable. Let's say it's 20 lakh rupees that you're talking about for one semester abroad. It straight away, in the moment, becomes 24 lakh rupees. That 4 lakh rupees is a hit. In a year, for the next semester, let's say 20 lakh rupees more, 4 lakhs more for a year, it is an 8 lakh rupee hit, which you will get a refund for the next year. Because you can remit up to $250,000. But beyond 7 lakh rupees, you're still getting taxed at 20%.
Right.
And so, to my mind, this is the government of India taking pretty much an interest-free loan from any Indian traveling abroad and saying, hey, you know what, I could give you this money back next year, but the onus is on you to prove to me that you have not evaded any taxes and all the spends you've done are under the LRS limit of $250,000. Up until then, 7 lakh rupees and more, I'm going to tax you at 20% tax collected at source. Below 7 lakh rupees, I'm going to tax you at 5%. And any currency exchange, forex cards, tours, travels booked through even an Indian aggregator will be taxed at 20%. It's on to you to come back and claim that money back 1 year later. Until then, it's an interest-free loan I've taken from you.
Right, and ladies and gentlemen, that's going to kick in starting for the 1st of July officially, that 20% rule that we're talking about. And Karthik, I think I'm going to postpone my Europe trip at this stage, because it looks as if...
I would suggest do it tomorrow. 3 days, hop off, hop back in.
It's not like, I just want to do the one trip correctly. I want to be continuing to do trips, over the course of the
but doing it later is not going to help as well, Krishna. This factor in, if you're spending 7 lakh rupees or more, factor in an additional cash out of 20% in the moment, which will come back to you to plan a domestic trip maybe next year.
But what really struck me was the way you put it. It's like the onus is on me to prove that I'm not a tax evader.
Yeah.
The onus is on me to collect the tax that I was not meant to pay, but
That's
was
right.
collected either way, that I will collect after a year, which means that straight away, savings bank account, I'm foregoing 5% interest on that cash that has been staying
right.
with the government.
That's right.
And third of all, why am I under a cloud for wanting to go travel abroad and see the world? Am I the one to be checked? Am I the one who's going to be this middle class, this growing upper middle class, which we want more and more to grow, for the consumption story in this country to grow, and for the levels of paychecks and disposable incomes in this country to grow. It's people like me who should be having better cash in hand. Well, we'll have to wait on that.
If you have friends and relatives abroad, make them spend and pay them on the side.
No, but that's also remittance. So you pay them 7 lakh rupees and more, there's another 20%.
Basically, the best way of doing is stay in India, don't spend money outside of India, spend money within India, and then just
Hindustan ka dil dekho.
Yeah, exactly. Just see as much of it. I think this is another way to promote domestic tourism, Karthik. Don't you think this is an indirect way of making sure that we have so many rules when you go abroad that you're going to be so scared and so worried that you will change that trip into a domestic trip?
I guess. That is one way to look at it. But every time you go abroad, you are in fact giving a boost to somebody else's economy. Again, coming back to that $10 burger, you spend that internationally, you are actually aiding consumption in the US or Europe or whichever country you've traveled to. So the point is, it could be the government trying to say that whatever consumption, these are guys who have money, willingness to spend that money, might as well get them to spend that money in India and give a boost to our consumption story rather than another countries.
Well, we'll have to wait and watch with those domestic tourism numbers. We'll see how much of a spike that they see with all of this. Eventually we will be checking on that as well, ladies and gentlemen, and telling you whether because of all of this, domestic tourism numbers are growing significantly or not. We'll have to wait and watch on that. But for time now, we are still sticking with you, the consumer and banking and other stuff, because we have a very important story, ladies and gentlemen, that we're bringing to you at this stage. And that is the fact that there is something called as the credit worthiness of a customer or a consumer. In the US, your credit worthiness is predetermined by virtue through your social security number. And when you go out to take a loan, a housing loan or any other kind of loan, you will be clearly told, based on your credit worthiness, at what percentage you will be getting the interest for the loan that you're taking. If your credit worthiness is great, then the interest rates are low. If your credit worthiness is not that great, then the interest rates are high. As simple as that. But in India, we do not have such systems. What we do have are 4 credit bureaus. One, namely, you must have definitely heard of, it's called CIBIL, and there are 3 others. There's Fairfax and a couple of others. So these 4 are the credit bureaus that essentially track the credit worthiness of customers in India. Exactly 4 of them. And guess what has happened? The Reserve Bank of India, in a first of sorts, has come down heavily upon all 4 of these credit bureaus for not keeping the right information regarding the customers, not updating the creditworthiness of their customers, and also not telling the customers any discrepancies that may exist based on the data for their creditworthiness. So this is the first of sorts, and this is very important because we're looking at a future where when you go out there, get a credit card, start spending on the credit card, start repaying the credit card bills, your pattern is tracked and your creditworthiness is approved. Now the question here is, if the data is not tracked properly, as in that you've paid back some of these credit card dues and that has not been updated, you're still seen as a defaulter, and the next time you go to get a loan, there's a good chance that your creditworthiness seems extremely low and that bank that you're asking a loan for will be denying you that loan. And that's the problem here. That's how you, the consumer, will get affected if all these credit rating bureaus don't do their jobs correctly. I'm going to bring this back to the gentleman in the studio, Amit and Karthik. Amit, you want to take a stab at this? Talk to us, 4 credit bureaus. Talk to us about those 4 credit bureaus and what exactly is going down with them.
What reminds me of the situation is the popular line, best of times and worst of times for consumers. It's a roll of the dice. People who may be eligible for a good loan may not get it. People who are not eligible for a good loan may get it because the information is warped. Okay. So, and the penalties are heavy. So, look at it. TransUnion CIBIL 26 lakhs. CRIF Highmark 25.75 lakhs. Equifax 24.25 lakhs and Experian Credit Services 24.75 lakhs. These are huge penalties. It's a huge clampdown.
Huge. I mean, 25 lakhs for Sibyl, 26
setting-
lakhs. What is it's peanuts. I mean, for the kind of grave mistakes they seem to have made, allegedly the kind of mismatch inaccuracies, these are, I mean, they've been let go of fairly easily. If this is the only penalty structure we are talking about, I think there should have been some punitive action against these agencies as well.
But Karthik, this is the punitive action that the RBI is taking. It's
25 lakh rupees? 25 lakh rupees? Seriously?
Well, I mean, we're also talking about an economy where the idea of credit worthiness is not something that's fully explored. I mean, we're not the US, we are in India. You know, credit worthiness in the US is a big deal. It's what, you know, when your student loan and, you know, and your housing loan, you know, how well you pay back your student loan decides how good a housing loan you get. Your life gets tracked from your student loan days onwards.
Absolutely.
That's how it's in the US.
Absolutely.
In India, you know what I'm talking about. There is no clear system where, you know, you defaulted on something so long before that you will not get a loan today.
No, what I'm saying is it's a first.
Yeah.
These four agencies were given 30 days by the RBI to prove or give their report on why this penalty should not be imposed. They were not able to do that. So that means the problem is really grave. They were given that chance, and after that these penalties were imposed. So it's a bigger problem. Probably it's going to unfold a little bit more, or it is going to be papered over. Either ways.
That's a good point, isn't it, Karthik? Two things can happen. As you're saying, the fines that have been levied on these four credit bureaus, Amit, if you can tell us the names of the credit bureaus just for clarity's sake.
Experian, Equifax, Griff Highmark, and TransUnion Sibyl.
TransUnion Sibyl. So these Sibyl scores, Karthik, are very famous and very common amongst people. You get it on your email all the time, don't you? Your Sibyl score is fantastic. So hence.
Yeah, I mean,
you get a loan. But here's the deal. You're saying the penalties levied on these four credit bureaus are low. But I am just happy that there is focus on credit rating.
Yes,
They
can't
will say
disagree
better
with
credit
you.
rating, better data management of customers,
Totally.
and also making sure there are no discrepancies so the deserving candidates get the loan.
Absolutely. Can't disagree with you on that at all. I just feel there should have been stricter action. And of course, if these discrepancies were there, enough and more should have been done before imposing the fine by way of show cause notices, warnings, smaller fines, etc., which may have happened. I don't know. I mean, it should have happened for them over the years to correct these discrepancies. Now, like Amit rightly said, you know, an undeserving candidate could very well walk away with a loan because of a discrepancy in the system, which gave that individual a high credit score, credit-worthy score, as opposed to somebody who has perhaps never taken a loan in his life, does not have a credit card, and hence no question of a default because of these data inaccuracies, is unable to secure the first loan. So these inaccuracies impact common people every day, those who need access to finance, those who need access to credit get denied because of inaccuracy. It's a problem which should entail a penalty much higher than 26 lakh rupees to my mind, right? And for those who have a low credit score, but because of the inaccuracies in the system, end up getting a bigger loan and defaulting on that loan, again, I feel the 25 lakh rupees, 26 lakh rupees penalty is very less for enabling an individual on the basis of these ratings to default, right? And bring the shame as well as the onus back on the taxpayers to keep those banks where the NPAs have emerged afloat. So, but yeah, coming back to the point, I think Sibyl and the rest of them as well, Sibyl, I know for sure, does get initiated and accepts you as a member to track as soon as you have your PAN card and your first bank account. So it knows for a fact your first credit card, any auto loan, any other additional credit card, any default is supposed to squarely get captured at all these four credit bureaus, right? Now, if that default has happened, of course, there is a problem and that problem needs to be rectified. So I think I would emphasize more on this 30-day window for the discrepancies to be erased as opposed to, you know, getting jubilant about the 26 lakh rupees that they've been asked to pay.
Fair enough.
It's a first and it's out in the public. So I believe that is a start at least.
Yeah, of course. It's a start.
I think that's where we all three of us converge. You know, it's a good start, but it's just a start. Because, you know, the problem we're talking about why it's grave is that if you get this wrong, if the credit bureaus get it wrong, what's going to happen? Two consequences. You enable a defaulter.
Yeah.
You enable a defaulter, and two, you deny credit to somebody who deserves it.
Absolutely.
And so both of these are problematic. If you have problems with NPAs in banks, this means that you're going to be willfully creating more NPAs in banks. So, that's the problem. That's how grave the problem is, ladies and gentlemen.
And consumers now know that CIBIL is not sacrosanct. That is the bigger problem. CIBIL was till today was sacrosanct.
Absolutely.
At least I thought so.
Yeah, even we all thought once
so.
there's a CIBIL score, that's the end of things. But looks like that's not the end of things. Lots more needs to be done to make sure all this credit rating is done correctly, data is updated correctly, discrepancies are taken away correctly, so that the right people get the loans and those who don't deserve it don't get it. But I'm going to stay with the RBI, Karthik, because there's a related story. Just to quickly discuss it, there is the now you're taking the auditors and the companies who audit other companies. Now they're being taken to task as well. National Financial Reporting Authority, which is the regulator of auditors, they've also been told that just because an auditor resigns from the company, he or she cannot be absolved of all the misdeeds of the company's books just because they have resigned from the company.
Yeah.
So there is action happening from both ends, from regulators, and there is RBI cracking down upon credit rating bureaus, and then there's the National Financial Reporting Authority cracking down upon auditors. Where companies' books have a problem, and yet auditors have resigned. Well, they can't be let go scot-free. That's the latest that we understand here. But moving on to more stories, Karthik, one story that really
EPFO.
Yes, we will talk about EPFO because we always talk about EPFO. It's a very important topic. Karthik has been on it from the time all the controversies began. And yet again.
This is something we mentioned yesterday.
Let me give the news, Karthik.
Okay, go ahead.
For all those watching this broadcast, don't get confused. What has happened yet again is that the deadline for EPFO submissions have been extended again for the third time by another 10 to 11 days, if I'm not mistaken. Karthik, all yours now.
15 days, in fact. 26th June, which was yesterday, was the deadline. In this case, specifically to opt for the higher pension scheme as part of EPFO.
Yes.
Right. Now, I don't know how much time we've got. I think we can spend about 2 minutes or so on this. Now, what really happened was RBI, I'm sorry, I'm still stuck with RBI, EPFO decided to offer higher pension to eligible employees, members of the EPFO community, to opt for higher pension after their retirement. Up until now, the division was fairly simple, that there were two components in all the contributions you and your employers made to the EPFO account. One went to the Provident Fund, which you received as lump sum at your retirement, which according to EPFO rules is 58 years of age. And then there was this pension component, and this pension component was a much smaller component which could be monthly equated and deposited back into your bank account. Now the limit for this was about 5,000 rupees up until 1995, got increased to about 6,500 rupees subsequently up until 2013 or 2014, if I'm not mistaken. Now, EPFO came up with this suggestion that employees or members of EPFO can opt for a higher pension up to 50% of their basic salary. And to opt for that, your employer's contribution to Provident Fund would be reduced by 1.6%, and your employer's contribution to your pension would increase by that 1.6% to enable up to 50% of your average of your last drawn basic salary after retirement. Now, that deadline was meant to be in the month of May. 3rd May was the deadline initially. That got extended to 26th June. Rightly so, it got extended the first time because till the 3rd May deadline lapsed, EPFO had not disclosed the formula for calculating this higher pension. Subsequently, that formula came out, and that formula was for those who were in service up till 30th of September 2014, the calculation would be the last 12 months of your basic salary plus DA in the case of government employees, an average of the last 12 months of salary into 35 being the maximum number of years of service or the actual number of years of service divided by 70. The magic number 70 because 35 divided by 70 is 1 upon 2 into average of basic salary is 50% of your basic salary becomes your pension for as long as you live. Now, 50% of that is accrued to the spouse and 25% of that after your demise. After the spouse's demise, 25% of that is due to maximum of 2 children until they attain the age of 25. Come back to the deadline. Now, 3rd May, beyond 3rd May, the formula got disclosed, but what also got disclosed was that there is a cap to this 50% pension, higher pension. And that cap is 15,000 rupees a month for those who retired after the 30th of September 2014. For those who retired before the 30th of September 2014, the cap is at 7,500 rupees. Now, so it makes sense for somebody who, let's say, has an average basic salary of 30,000 rupees a month will continue getting 50% of that for their life. Now, the point is, EPFO website, as always, threw up unpleasant surprises to those who wanted to apply for this higher pension. Number one, there was very complex documentation required, paperwork required between the employer and the employee, both jointly signed, uploaded on the EPFO website, because this contribution will be made from the employer's contribution, which is part of your CTC, but the employer's contribution has to increase by 1.6%, reduced from your pension fund, from your provident fund, increase to your pension fund, 1.6%. So, employer and employee jointly had to file a documentation, a declaration, and the proof of the last 12 months of salary statement for those who retired up to 30th September 2014 and 60 months of basic salary, 5 years of your salary statements for those who retired or are still in service after 30th of September 2014. Collation of all these documents, these joint declarations between employer and employee, and then the mammoth task of uploading all this on the EPFO website, which is always completely infested with glitches of all kinds. So, a lot of people went and complained to EPFO saying that, you know what, we have all the documents ready, we are unable to upload them and get them verified on the EPFO website. So, how about giving us another leeway? And that leeway has come by yet another extension in deadline by 15 days this time. So, instead of that deadline lapsing yesterday, 26th of June, it's now open till 11th of July.
One question.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that this deadline too will be extended? Are you looking at the likelihood?
And I'll add one more question, which was this information about employers, and we touched upon this last time also. What happens to companies that don't exist anymore or employers that have merged? Is that also been clarified, or that is...
Your EPFO account is at an individual level to begin with, right? So, you have a UAN, a unique account number, which is unique to you as an employee. So, for companies that have gone under, companies that have shut shop, would have had an EPFO account when they were operational, and that money which was due to you every month would have been transferred to your account, the UAN account. So, if that company does not exist anymore, it doesn't matter, you as a UAN EPFO member exist, and that is what is important. Assuming you are presently working somewhere in formal employment, then that formal employer also has an EPFO account, and when you opt for higher pension, the monthly contribution of your employer to your EPFO account will reduce on the provident fund side and increase on the pension side for you. So, it doesn't matter if companies you have worked in previously do not exist anymore. It could pose a problem if you have worked in those companies for the last 5 years and you don't have your salary statements. Then it becomes a problem. But then again, there are mechanisms even for companies that have gone down to remotely assist past employees with financial statements. Coming to your question, sir, I will not be surprised if that deadline gets pushed again, but I will be very pleasantly surprised if these glitches are eliminated in these 15 days and those who wish to opt for higher pension are able to do it barrier free.
Because there is another deadline that's approaching, because the employers will have to approve these increased PF contributions by the 30th of September. And you have July 11th now as the final deadline for submitting. So this also crunches upon the time that the employers have to collate all the people who have data of all the people who wanted increased EPFO contributions and approve them by the 30th of September. So we are running against another deadline, even if they want to keep going with this. The question I want to ask also is this, as he was talking about employers who have gone under, companies that cease to exist. Right now you're looking at big companies which are not depositing their PF contributions.
Yes.
I mean, there is no mystery over here. That's what Byju's is accused of.
Yes.
And I don't think Byju's is alone, because this is a problem that is faced by many working professionals in India across the board, isn't it? The fact that your employer has to deposit the PF contributions come what may.
By law, by labor law, it is mandated, incumbent upon any organization to deposit this contribution to a member's or a permanent employee's EPFO account. So if there have been lapses, if there have been delays, and let's assume that a company or two may go under now, it becomes their absolute fiduciary obligation to remit this money into the employee's account. It could get delayed, but it is mandated as per labor laws by the government of India that this contribution must be made. So even if there have been lapses for a couple of months here or there, if the company were to dissolve as well, whatever recovery is made of that company going insolvent or getting sold or whatever change of ownership, all these dues will have to be credited to the employee's accounts.
All right, that's the truth as far as EPFO is concerned. Deadline extended to the 11th of July. And bear in mind, all working professionals over there, whichever companies you're working for, please do ensure and check whether your employer is making those monthly Provident Fund contributions and they are getting deposited in your account. Check for your UAN, as Karthik was talking about, and check in your UAN account whether your employer has been crediting the Provident Fund on a regular basis, because there is no guarantee these days, ladies and gentlemen. Some of the biggest of companies out there, they have TV advertisements for which they spend crores, and then brand endorsements for which they spend crores, and they don't deposit your Provident Fund contribution. But moving on here, I'm going to get these things back to outward remittances or outward bound, so to speak. We're talking about tax collected at source. When you spend on credit cards abroad, or when you want to invest in financial assets abroad. What has been happening? Interesting, trend as far as outward or outbound travel is concerned. Travel to the US by Indians is up a good 50% on the back of both students getting back to their studies and more students finally getting their visas and going for their classes, for their semesters in the US, and tourists as well, both contributing to a 50% jump in outbound travel from India to the US. Amit has more details on that. Amit, talk to us.
50% jump in flight bookings to the US, 130% jump in students traveling to the US year on year in 2023. So despite the 7 lakh cap, people are going to the US. And this is also on the back of easing of visa curbs post PM Modi's state visit to the United States. Curbs have been eased and resumption of visa processing has happened. So the timing basically is telling.
My only question here is this, Karthik, are you witnessing the so-called pent-up demand? So many students could not get their visas in time, could not get their documents in time to make it for their semesters in the year 2021 and in the year 2022. Maybe a lot of that held over travel finally happened in 2023.
Absolutely right. Absolutely. So of course there is students who could not attend campus internationally in the US last year, would have last year would be my guess, right? Because in the pandemic, of course, many students who had actually got admissions opted out of pursuing their higher education because the on-campus experience would have been lost in remote learning, distance learning. So I think there is some pent-up demand on that end also adding up. And then of course, visas were not available. In fact, I applied for a US visa last year and my US visa interview date at the consulate in Delhi was November 2024. There was a 2.5-year waiting period, which then got filled over the last 1 year. They've opened up more slots and they've reinforced a lot of facilitation of visas. So a lot of people who were planning to undertake travel for meeting family, and US is a large base of NRIs and families abroad. So I think a lot of pent-up demand definitely adding up now.
And also the fact that finally we got a US ambassador to India who was appointed after a 2.5-year grab, Eric Garcetti, who finally became US ambassador to India. Maybe that is also helping processes. Last minute or two on the show, Karthik, we're talking about demand. One demand that is not up, Karthik, is the demand for beer in India's capital, Delhi. Beer sales are down by over 50%, Karthik, and the reasons are interesting. Lack of chilled options, lack of chilled beer being available at vendors, not enough brands and not enough brand push happening for beer. But then the Delhi Excise Department, incidentally, has blamed the entire fall in beer sales on the Delhi excise policy and the fact that the month of May was not as hot as it was supposed to be. It wasn't hot enough to have beer.
Cheers to that. Let's cheers on coffee.
Yeah, cheers on coffee. On that. Cheers.
No, but I think it's very simple. You know, the Delhi Excise Department, which has alcohol sales as a great source of revenue, of course, modified the policy last year. So beer makers are blaming the Delhi excise policy, saying that they are not getting enough money from the Delhi stores to fulfill orders for beer, and hence why not stock up neighboring cities like Noida and Gurgaon. And the Delhi government, because not wanting to admit to the excise policy issues, is saying, you know what, the summers weren't severe enough, and we only had 16 days where mercury crossed 40 degrees up until 31st of May, so it wasn't hot enough for people to actually enjoy a glass of beer. But the case, of course, as it may be, I think if numbers are right, beer up until last year accounted for about 1/3 of
all liquor sales.
Of all liquor sales.
Yeah.
And now that number is down by about 52% as you mentioned. So it's come down from 1/3 to 1/6. It doesn't mean people have stopped loving their lather any more, any less.
They're going to Gurgaon and Noida to have them.
Going to neighboring cities and procuring whatever they want. Another problem, of course, is not enough brands wanting to fill up stores in Delhi. And, of course, Gurgaon being cheaper and more cosmopolitan finds better takers for them.
Right, last word in for Amit, and we wrap this up.
No, it would be interesting to find out which are the brands that the Delhiites were choosy about and they did not get in Delhi.
That's a discussion for another day, Amit, but I'm afraid we've completely run out of time here on this morning edition of Business Plus. Thank you, Amit, and thank you, Karthik, as always, for being with us. With that, the wrap right from my side. This is KrishnaKumar signing off. Keep it with News 9.
China won't let us rest easy on our borders, but they will keep flooding our markets. What does Xi Jinping really want?
I think he wants the Indian market, no doubt about it. It's really a matter of showing their dominance.
India's great Chinese conundrum.
Nobody can contain it. Not the United States, not China, not anybody else.
Frenemies.